Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Gyan Mamhani, and welcome back to the Entrepreneurship Insights Podcast. I want to welcome Eric to the show. Born and raised in California, he's the founder of ShopX, which is an electronic NFT company. He aims to bridge the gap between Web3 and e-commerce with his ventures. Thank you for joining me, Eric.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for having me.
For sure. So to start off, tell us your story. How did it all begin?
Cool. Well, it's nice to meet everyone. My name is Eric. I'm 29 years old. I'm blessed to be living in beautiful Southern California. Some of my hobbies include chess, Muay Thai, hiking, and pretty much anything involving the sun I'm down for. My past work experience is I interned in Washington, D.C. as a consultant, interned as a project manager in Barcelona. My first job out of college, which was University of California, Irvine, was at Snapchat or Snap Inc. as we call it. The reason I chose that specifically was I joined for a special project to help optimize their ad algorithm, which started like a month before their IPO and it lasted 2 months after. So I wanted to see what it was like going through an IPO with a major company. It was honestly amazing in every way. Like the team was friendly. Snap's campus, it's a bunch of different houses on Venice Beach, so it's fun jumping around different work spots, and the food was great. From there, so that contract ended. I was like, okay, I need a new job. I was eyeing consulting, so I was looking at like McKinsey, Bain, a couple of other firms. I ended up at a restructuring consulting firm. So as a Fortune 500 company goes bankrupt, there's a lot of debt you have to move around, and you just have to hire consultants, lawyers to get that done. And it was at that point in time, I was heavily researching cryptocurrency. So I was getting my friends, one's at Coinbase, one's at Kraken right now, but we had a trio. We were reading all the articles, listening to all the podcasts, doing that whole thing. It's like my friend would buy 200, text group saying, hey, I bought $200 of Bitcoin. What's up? And I'm like, okay, well, it looks like I bought 500. Then the friend would respond with 1,000. So we'd share podcasts and all that good stuff with each other. That was a fun time. But I'm sure you're aware that as a consultant, my job wasn't to do good work, which we did. We did. The firm was fantastic, nothing along those lines. But the incentive was to bill out hours to the client. So some things took longer than they should, which kind of went against the ethos of Bitcoin as a currency, which is saying like no rent-seeking behavior. So I waited for my bonus. I quit that job right after my bonus for reasons. And then from there, I started going to cryptocurrency meetups in my local area. And that's where I met the original ShopX team. We started building. We spun off a side company called CarpRev. Paul only had two names, different naming reasons. What that was a social commerce platform. It replaced affiliate links. So you're a brand, you're on Shopify, you can upload all your products. So Nike, Adidas, Lululemon, all three of those brands upload their products. I'm a fan of all three brands. I see Adidas shoe, Nike shirt, Lululemon shorts. I add all three products to my individual link, and then anyone can make that purchase from my link. I get a commission, they get a discount, brand gets a sale, everyone's happy. At that peak, it had over 120 brands using the platform. The startup's no longer around. I'm sure you can guess what happened to that. So, and then from there, it was full force into ShopX. So what ShopX is, it's not electronic NFTs. That's kind of redundant, but it's e-commerce NFTs. So when you think of ShopX, I want you to think of the Apple or the Google of Web3. We're a suite of easy to use products for a brand to download an app and then start interacting with Web3 to get their customers into Web3. From a personal ethos standpoint, I would like to live a nice, peaceful life. It's what most people want. I don't think I can do that if the money system is corrupt and broken, which I view it as it is, and that's what started me down my Bitcoin journey. So instead of me annoying my mother, my father, and like Thanksgiving dinner, saying, "Hey, you need to buy Bitcoin," which they both did after like honestly like 3 years of just me annoying them, it's better for me if I onboard a major brand onto ShopX. They use our platform. They create a NFT, or we call reserve passes, just because of the negative connotation around NFTs right now, but I'm sure that'll change. So like Nike on boards using ShopX, they create a pass. Now a million users or a million Nike customers purchase the pass for the e-commerce benefits. So they don't have to know it's NFT, but now they have an NFT, and that's a 0 to 1 situation. And hopefully they do their own research.
That's great. There's a lot to unpack in that story.
Yeah.
First, you got your experience interning at Washington at in DC, and then you also worked um, with Snapchat pre-IPO, and then you saw that progress, right? So you worked like that, and then you started you experienced uh, you went to networking events, you
Oh yeah.
built your team there, and then you just started founding startups. Correct?
I can't recommend networking events enough. Honestly, like some of them are a complete waste of time, but there are some great ones where you meet some cool people and then you just kind of like jam together.
Yeah. Like some of them, like personally, I dragged a friend into this once. Um, there was the guy put it as a networking event, and it was like only 15 minutes away from us, and so we went there. But the whole time he was just trying to sell us his $1,000 course, and so
Okay.
that was like it was a he
No.
did it as a networking event, but there was no networking happening. I just left. I'm like, forget this, I'm done. But like there are other events where like you can truly learn from mentors in your area and how they rose to fame and success. So like I feel like yeah, to some extent they are very helpful. And so how did your past experience, like you were talking about like this timeline, right? Where you started working for Snapchat and then how that sort of progressed into um, starting ShopX. How did those specific experiences in the beginning of your entrepreneurial journey sort of help create this new startup? Like where do you think of the idea? Like how do you identify that need?
Yeah, so regarding like how Snapchat and how the consulting firm helped me on my journey, they're completely different environments. So I in any situation, there's things you can learn, there's things you don't want to learn. So take the good, leave the bad, and just absorb the good information, the good habits. So for example, from Snapchat, I learned how to work collaboratively with a team in a free-flowing environment where everyone's just kind of doing their own thing. Obviously, the ad algorithm stuff did help. That sounds fancy to people. Whereas a consulting job, it's completely different in the sense you have to learn how to type professional emails. You get really ridiculously good at Excel. And that helps with the corporate structure. So that kind of helps with the investment fundraising side. In terms of ShopX, I mean, I'm one of the founders, but I'd say the visionary is Cyrus. He just identified a business need saying, okay, the supply chain is broken. If we can attach ENFT to the supply chain, it'll help fix things up. So I want you to imagine. So right now, I'm not sure you're aware, but um, barcodes don't work 100% of the time.
Yeah.
There's a huge issue with authenticity. So for example, like any clothing brand in whatever Thailand or China or wherever they make it, let's say that manufacturing site has two shifts during the day for the brand. A lot of times a shadow company or like locals or whomever will run the same exact thing for a third shift at night, which is creating inauthentic products. So MintX, SourceX, that's a way to solve that. And the cool thing about our company is that's how it kind of started, but we're super adaptable, meaning with ReserveX, that was our flagship program. So SourceX wasn't our first program. ReserveX was, and that became because of brand need. So it was what brands need at the time. It made sense for us to build that. We built that. Now we're circling back with SquadX and SourceX.
Yeah. That does make sense. You're talking about like inauthentic products. Like I feel like if you go to like me personally, I've been on the streets of India and then I found like
Oh yeah.
off-brand Gucci belts, like
Yeah.
ridiculous, right? So it's like, yeah,
Oh no. A cool thing about the inauthentic products is so let's say we're making a Lamborghini, you can see where all the parts came from.
yeah,
You can verify they're all authentic. Or if you're Nike, you're using a Mintex attaching ENFT to that. You can track all the days. Like Eric sold it to person A sold to person B sold to person C. You can get all that customer data. You can even program yourself on royalties all in the transaction on the blockchain. That's cool. As a customer, you can verify where it came from. So you get the same information. So everything's transparent. And in the metaverse, which I think is going to be a thing, I've seen plenty of startups do cool things like in the metaverse, whatever, virtual shopping. So
yeah. Well,
let's say I purchase like my Gucci, whatever, glasses, or who cares. Now there's an ENFT attached to that. I get that ENFT in the metaverse, so my character has that as well. Or if I purchase something in the metaverse, I get the ENFT, and then I can redeem that in the form of token gaining a product. Like Gucci would token gate the live product there. So I can work both ways. So it's a new technology. People are going to play around with it, and it's actually very interesting.
Yeah, yeah. So it's basically like tokenizing like the currency that we know of today, right? In terms of like just regular products like you were talking about, sunglasses or belts or shoes
Yeah,
or
like eventually it could be like a glal supply chain inventory on the blockchain. So
yeah,
no more
yeah,
confusion. And then everyone can sell everyone's stuff and it just runs better.
yeah. So I feel like this does fit in like on your LinkedIn portfolio on your LinkedIn page, you say like you're connecting Web3 with e-commerce. And so like how's that experience been for you? And like could you go into specifics as to like how exactly does that work from like a ground up perspective?
So if you remember my little unasked purpose of when living a nice, peaceful life, the best way to do that is to onboard brands, use their services to get their customers on. So in that sense, it's great because I'm doing what I'm passionate about. But from a more practical standpoint, it's typical sales. It's kind of difficult to be honest, because let's say we're talking like a Fortune 500 company, they don't really know what an NFT is, so we have to explain to them what the NFT is. No, I mean, yes, 95% of NFTs are scams, but this is not. So what we've had to do is separate NFT and ENFT. So a lot of times an NFT is built on hype, whereas our ENFT derives its value from the e-commerce benefits you have. So as a brand using ReserveX, and brands are doing this in plenty of different ways. So our flagship program, Mag Park, they created 3 different passes. Think of like gold, silver, bronze tier pass, and they're adding continuous benefits to that pass. So gold members get early access to drops, discounts on pricing, and a bunch of cool stuff. We're going to work with a TV show, whereas the fans of the TV show, they buy their pass, they redeem it for a one-time product. They get to do their makeup in real time with a specific kit with the main character as like a fan appreciation thing. We've had and this is personally my favorite use case is he was an influencer. He's a husky on Instagram, which I mean I like huskies, so it's cool. So he had an audience, but he didn't have a product or he didn't have a product yet. So what he did was he launched his pass prior to the release of his product. He got some funds and then he used it as a Kickstarter and a proof of concept. So yeah, there's to answer your question, it takes time. Some communities are a lot, so you have to get the brand and the community on board. So if you get the brand, the community says no, it won't work. You can't get the community without the brand. So we have to educate the brand, and the brand has to educate the community. And if it both fits, it fits, which
Yeah,
it has in the past.
yeah, yeah. That does make sense. Like you were saying, it like the the influencer example that you gave really helps put it what do you call it? What's the word for it? Really helps us picturize exactly what's going on in terms of Web3 and e-commerce. So, as as a chief growth officer, what do your day-to-day responsibilities entail? Like, as in, like, um, what what are you tasked with doing? Like, how do you how do you just go through that process?
Sure. So ShopX, we are a NFT as a service platform, and our we have tokenized software licenses. So if you go on CoinMarketCap, you can see the ShopX tokenized software license. Anyone can purchase them on any authorized reseller. So I view my main responsibility as to increase the authorized to increase the value or grow the value of the tokenized software licenses for its holders. So it could be SquadX members, it could be brands having the licenses to have access to products and services. So my day to day honestly changes a lot. I work closely with the tech team. I do some marketing. Obviously, sales are super important. So what I like to there's no real set. I have my set habits that I do every day, and I think those are good. But in terms of day to day tasks, it changes. It really depends on business need.
Okay, okay, yeah. So, like, would you be in charge of like contacting other companies or like how does that work?
Yeah, I mean, I contact tons of companies. It depends if it's a good fit or if it's not a good fit. Like it could be a brand, like an e-commerce. Like I'm on plenty of sales calls with e-commerce brand. That's a pretty obvious fit where it's okay. You want to use ReserveX? Great. If you don't want to use ReserveX, also great. Good luck to you. But it could also be working out in partnership with someone who doesn't exactly fit with their brand. It could be another Web3 company that's well versed in Web3, and then we can kind of grow together to combine our audiences. It can be talking to an agency because with our reserve pass. So brands are the ones who create the pass. When in pass creation, the brand has the optionality to program in where the wallet goes. So it's pretty commonplace for agencies to handle the marketing for the brand. So in that case, it's common sense that, okay, agency, you want some money for your brand working with us, then they can program them themselves a certain percentage of the sales, thus incentivizing them to use the product or services.
Yeah, that does make sense. So, like, could you tell us about a particularly challenging project or obstacle that you've faced? Um, it could be from anything, like from your past consulting job, at Snapchat, or maybe at ShopX.
I don't know, Snapchat was honestly super easy just because they had a nice framework. It was just really just trying to so what I'm good at is I'm looking at something that's like, and this is an annoying feature of mine. It's like, okay, this could be better in XYZ ways. So with Snapchat, it was about optimizing the ad. So we had a cool team just bouncing ideas off of each other. It's like, okay, the ads that got more views, these are the traits that were in this ad. This is what you want to replicate amongst other ads, and you test it, then you further optimize all that stuff. The consulting job, that was overall easy. What was difficult for me is I personally didn't like the level of professionalism needed there, so that's kind of why I left. ShopX and CarRev, but I don't want to say it's difficult because it's not. I view it as an opportunity. The difficult thing about both those companies is everything's unknown. So startups are risking themselves. A Web3 startup is, I guess, double the risk. So like, it's like a new frontier. It's like, we don't know what's going to work. We don't know how it's going to work. We don't know how people are going to react. So it's just a continuous stream of optimization and testing.
Yeah, so like you were saying, there is always this like level of uncertainty, especially in Web3. It's like double, like you said, right? But I feel like one of the things that has worked for you, from my observation, is that you view everything as an opportunity, whether to grow, whether to make more money, to be more profitable, right? So like it's that perspective change. And I feel like that's one of the reasons why maybe some of the companies that you could have worked with but didn't um, had that sort of obstacle, right? It's just like not being able to see past that new new sort of realm that they were getting into.
Yeah, I mean, I view things as I view framework your mental framework as super important. There's a funny Chinese story. It's like, okay, it's an ancient Chinese town. The farmer, he has a horse stolen. The neighbors say, "Oh, that sucks." And he's like, "It is what it is." And the horse comes back with five more friends, and then the neighbor's like, "Oh, that's great for you. It is what it is." His son has to take care of now these five horses. He falls and breaks his leg. Neighbors say, "This sucks." And the guy says, "It is what it is." And then now the Chinese army comes saying, recruiting people for their soldiers, and they skip the son because he has a broken leg. So it is what it is. Like how I view everything as a positive situation because there's really no downside not to, and you don't know what's going to happen in the future.
Yeah, yeah. That that's actually so true when you think about it, because like I feel like there's this new wave of stoicism that's coming around where like the people, like young people like you and me, are like adopting this mindset that anything can be any, like you're gonna face obstacles. It's just your perspective with which you see them. Like it's your ability to persevere through them.
Exactly. By the way, I completely butchered the actual Chinese story, but the concept stays the same.
Yeah, yeah. I've
I'm sure you've heard it.
yeah. I've heard of the plot, but like the point is that okay, that it is what it is mindset, and it is really important, and the fact that it sort of forces you to find a solution, because things aren't going to get better for you. You just have to deal with it and just like
Yeah, deal with it. It's like
yeah,
what else are you gonna do?
exactly. Like you can sit and cry, but like crying is
Well,
not
that's not gonna do anything.
exactly.
Yeah.
So like
Like,
I feel like
there's always the best move you can make in any situation, and to find the best move, just think calmly, slow down, and then select the best move that you think it's the time. In hindsight, who knows? It could have been the worst move. It could have been the middle move. But as long as you make the best move you think, you can't get mad at yourself. It's like, hey man, I thought that was the best move at the time.
Yeah,
Looks like it wasn't, but
yeah, it's all like that matter of conviction that you have, and you're talking like you're interested in chess and Muay Thai, right? The exact same thing matters, right? Like in chess, the best, whatever you think is the best move, deal with the consequences later.
yeah,
Watch you lose your queen, but like,
yeah. Sometimes it's a queen sacrifice.
yeah,
Sometimes you're losing the game and just have to throw her out there.
yeah, and like,
Muay
it,
Thai is the same too, by the way.
huh?
Muay Thai is very similar to chess too, by the way.
Yeah, yeah, you always have to be a move, like you always have to think about two or three moves in advance. And so I feel like that's a really big thing when it comes to entrepreneurship, right? Like being able to have that sort of conviction that, okay, I'm going to do what I have to do, and I'm not going to look back. Because looking,
Yes. So what really helped me, and again, I was really fortunate. The consulting job is we were billing out hours, so
yeah,
I had a lot of free time. So during that, like my 12-hour workday, 100% of the time I had podcasts on. I'd always, and that's where I picked up reading obsessively. And so that's where that mindset kind of came out. If you've heard of like Taleb, Anti-Fragile, that's one of my favorite books of all time. Just kind of reading stuff like that on repeat and just continuously reading has been very helpful. I'm sure you've read Meditations based on our conversation just
yeah,
now. Yeah, like some stuff like that. You can just, like Art of War, all that stuff is you just read it all, absorb what you can, and just kind of move on and then apply it in your daily life.
exactly. And I feel like reading without application is kind of just useless. And I feel like working on that's a very big thing, especially like I need to work on because like I feel like especially today we take in so much information, whether it's through
Oh,
social.
good. It's all programming.
Yeah, like but like being able to process that and it comes back to what you said, right? Taking the good, taking the bad, and then throw out the bad and just absorb the good, right?
Yeah, you need to be careful on social media. Most of the information there is complete garbage. So my social media strategy, especially on Instagram is a business tool for me.
Yeah,
I'm in and out. So I consciously am looking for myself for mindless scrolling. So I'm stuck on reels of like, okay, I've been doing this for like 30 seconds, no more. So I just try to kind of view my own content. Twitter, it's easier to curate your feed. So like you can get some good philosophical stuff in there or like crypto stuff. So that's where I did a lot of crypto learning. LinkedIn is also a good business tool.
yeah, yeah, for sure. Like I use I use Instagram for the podcast, but like I've sort of tailored it towards teens specifically by taking what I learned from the podcast, from the interviews, and then making like a comedy skit out of it or like something to actually engage the teenager like audience like with that quick reaction time or a quick um
Yeah, yeah.
what do you call it? Just like your response time is like so faltering. Like it's just like has to be quick. That's it. Otherwise you're gone.
Yeah.
Your attention is gone.
Yeah, that's all. Well, that was in hindsight, it's always, but that was the main takeaway from the ad algorithm stuff. It's like, okay, you want something to get them hooked immediately, and then they can watch the whole thing.
Yeah, yeah. That's the basic thing, right? Like how can I keep you hooked to the screen as long as possible?
Which is kind of diabolical if you think about it, because what our best minds in the world are doing is they're getting, like, for example, the brightest minds for the past like 20 years have been at social media companies. So we're paying the smartest people have been researching how to trigger dopamine receptors within our society from a screen. And unfortunately, it hasn't been good reasons. Like it's like that's why clickbaity rage stuff works so well. It's because that triggers the dopamine quickly,
Yeah.
or like sex sells, whereas like something like, for example, Marcus Aurelius quote, I don't think would perform very well in Snapchat's ad algorithm or TikTok's algorithm for that matter.
Correct.
Yeah.
Whereas someone like
So
someone someone failing a jump shot or something, I don't know, then that would be pretty interesting for people to see.
yeah, it's also I think it's also by design, but
Yeah.
I'm sure that's a whole other topic.
Yeah. That is that is true because like especially like people like you and me like we're trying to focus on creating content rather than consuming content just because like it would be more beneficial for us in the long run.
Oh yeah, most of the time consuming content, not this content. I think this content is fantastic,
Yeah.
but 99.9% of the content that is consumed on social media is probably not going to help you.
Correct, correct. And this is a point of like oversaturation, right? Like even even with this podcast, there's like hundreds of thousands of other podcasts that have the exact same format as this, who are just teaching, right? And it's like in whatever field you go, there's always hundreds of thousands of people doing the exact same thing. So it's like, well, you just have to decide as a consumer where you want to divert your attention,
Yeah,
right?
and I think as a creator, I think our best move is to be as authentic as possible. For example, me as an example, using an example, we're both number one at being ourselves. Whereas if I try to be like you and you try to be like me,
It
you're
would,
not going to beat the original. So might as well, like if we're best in the world at something, you might as well run with that versus try to be a copycat. And
right.
then and if you're authentic, you attract who you're supposed to attract, and you also repel who you're supposed to repel. And again, both those are just, it is what it is.
That is true. And so, like, I feel like this has something to do with like the future as well, right? Like you were talking about how just trying to be the best version of ourselves and try to like consume the best content out there that will help you for your self growth. So what excites you about the future of e-commerce and NFTs when it comes to just like the future, I guess?
Oh, it's just honestly like, everything excites me. Just, I wake up in a really good mood. It's like, oh, nice. I'm breathing. I do some push-ups, do some work, do some meditation, and I go to the gym. In terms of e-commerce applications, so what excites me most about ShopX, and this will transfer over to actually answer your question, is we're simply a technology platform.
Yeah,
E-commerce NFTs, they're just like a abstract idea that no one's really, people obviously like most of the major brands are getting into it and they've probably been doing this for years. But we're a technology platform. NFTs are technology. So brands and creators are gonna use the technology how they see fit. So there's gonna be a bunch of different use cases. What specifically excites me about this is it kind of gives power back to the people. And I'll go back to our Mag Park example. And this will apply to any brand. So they minted their NFT pass. It's a reserve pass. So if the brand gets big, the customer then shares in the value of the brand. So instead of value going to the shareholders, their passes are worth more. Or from the creator side, let's say I'm a rapper. I just started at my first show. You're attending. You're bringing your 10 year friends. I say, hey, thank you guys. You attended my show when no one else showed up. You guys mint your pass for me like for $5 as a like it's like instead of giving me $5, you mint a pass. 20 years later, I'm now main stage at Coachella. But like, I remember you guys. You have now totally get access to all this stuff because we now have a connection in the form of blockchain. So it's now I can send value. You send value to me. I send value back to you. And we now have a stream where we can continuously send value to each other. And the cool thing about this is now there's no middleman for that. There's no like record label saying, oh, well, yeah, well, I'll take 50% of that. There's no like Amazon saying, hey, small business, I'll take 30% of that. It's between me and you.
correct.
Look, it's a bilateral stream of value. So I think that term is starting to catch on. But
Yeah. That does make sense because like I feel like it's number one, our society revolves around transactions, right?
correct.
How you can provide transactional value. And then the second one is you're talking about the bilateral form of like transactions as well. But it's just that now you have something that can be tokenized, right? Like if you're a rapper and then I'm one of your diehard fans, right? Like you can decide how much that token is worth 20 years down the line or 30 years down the line. And I feel like on a
Yeah.
more superficial level, you can form really good relationships with NFTs, uh,
Oh, yeah.
just in general.
Yeah, people. I think NFTs will win in the long run because people are attaching their identity to NFTs. Once people start to do that, it's kind of sticky. It's hard not to. And so I think Web3 and crypto offer private property in the internet, and NFTs are the way to do that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's, I feel like you said, NFTs and crypto, those are our modes of communication with the blockchain, with this metaverse. And I feel like we can like along with like connections, like we can do networking, we can do literally anything from that. Like um we can purchase like things that would give us intrinsic value. It's the opportunities are really endless, and I do understand like how like the level of excitement that you have like every day you're waking up in a good mood, right? And just because of the amount of applications that there are in that NFT world.
we'll wake up in a good mood is also a choice.
Yep,
It's
that's
like gratitude is the attitude. I have a lot to be thankful for.
yeah.
So why would I? I don't feel like wasting time being sad and stuff.
Yeah, I feel like every day we have a choice on what to focus our attention on.
Yes.
And like sometimes I feel like I ignore all what the good that's happened to me just because of one small bad thing that's
Yeah.
happened. Like, okay, will the 5 minutes affect the next 5 years of my life? Yes or no? No, so then just ignore it, right?
Yeah.
Move on.
Go back to the yes or no mindset. Yeah, it's like if then statements.
Yeah. So yeah,
Well,
it's all a mindset shift. And I
yeah.
feel like that's the most difficult thing because on the slightest um feeling of adversity, we just shrink back into our like regular selves, regular egoistic.
I know, but
Yeah, it's harder to control, especially like for someone like me who's not like as mature as they would be a few years down the line.
yeah,
So
you'll learn how to do it. If it's helpful for you, you'll learn how to do it.
yeah,
You
when
just
you've
have to be just have
so
to be.
much life,
What was that?
when you've when you have experienced so much life, then I feel like you'd just be complacent with everything that's happening, and like you've done, like just gratitude is an attitude.
Yeah, that was cheesy. Now that I hear that,
I mean, like
it works, but it's super cheesy.
it is
Classic fortune cookie.
yeah, but it's still such a big concept that people still have to grasp and that people
And,
ignore.
and back to our social media programming, I think that's actually done a lot of damage because social media obviously it encourages people to share their highlight reels, and then now everyone's just like people on Instagram and they're flipping the stories. It's like it's either something designed to make you jealous, or you're just like, oh, this guy, he just got like a Lamborghini, he's like at a Michelin star restaurant, or it's something you don't care about at all. So I challenge you or your listeners to take out Instagram, and this is what actually made me. So my Instagram strategy is I try not to view anything. I post my content because my content is great, in and out. And what caused me to do this is I was like, okay, I'll go through my feed once, like the whole story feed, waste of time. Pretty much everything except for one post was either something that made me slightly jealous or like it was like a negative influence of advice. I was like, well, I don't need that.
Yeah,
Or something I just didn't even care about whatsoever. And the posts I did like were like people sharing like funny Marcus Aurelius videos or just like like the Stoic stories. I'm just like, that's kind of cool. But on Instagram, that's few and far between.
yeah. I do agree. Like I feel like social media to some extent connects us, but it also makes us more egoistic and self-centered.
Yeah,
Because like I'm as I observe myself, like sometimes like oh I see a funny reel and I'm just sitting in a room laughing to myself while staring at my phone and like my sister's doing it or like someone else is doing it and then I'm just thinking like wow
like
this is really what it's come to.
yeah, like if you're looking at you, if you're truly observing yourself and your family doing that, you all look like crazy people.
Yeah, exactly. Like if you look from an observer's perspective,
Yeah.
you see so much more, right? Like so much more fun things that are just fundamentally wrong.
And from that point of view, and I guess this will go into deep destruction, social media. So something I've made a conscious effort over the past years is to reset my dopamine receptors. Because I was thinking about it's like social media, their goal is to trigger dopamine receptors. The food itself is to trigger dopamine receptors. 500 years ago, we didn't have access. Like I could take my phone and get dopamine. I could go down to McDonald's, get a cheeseburger. That's too much dopamine. So like someone like think about it this way. Someone eating a salad with a piece of chicken like 500 years ago is happier eating that salad and piece of chicken than someone like in a Las Vegas buffet, completely drunk out of their mind, just because we've been hammered by dopamine and now our receptors are fried. So if you reset those, like life starts to get good in the sense like my baseline for happiness, I think it's much lower than everyone's because I've consciously reset that. So like I'm going to walk and it's like, oh, that's a super nice green on that leaf, which wouldn't have happened before. It's like, oh, lovely purple flower. Good job, flower. You're purple.
Exactly. Like the um many self-improvement people like YouTubers have talked about like a dopamine detox.
No, it's
Like
needed.
yeah, it is like and as you're saying it, I'm reflecting like oh like on my personal experiences like yeah, I do need a detox, right? But I feel like some people just don't know where to begin, right? And and I feel like the very first step is the very hardest because you don't want to let go of
Get rid
something.
of get rid of this for like a day.
Yeah, or just delete social media, like delete anything that will incite any emotion
Yeah.
um, in you, right? Because I feel like any emotion, any unnatural emotion caused by a phone or like any social media, that's very dangerous for you.
Well,
So
in that sense, someone designed that piece of content or whatever phone piece of information to incite that information. So someone designed it. Are there intentions for you to incite that emotion, good or bad? It's usually to buy something, so it's usually not good.
yeah, yeah, true. And and I feel like looking back, like it's just like the point is that emotions aren't the problem. It's just that when they're coming from something that's just like trying to like elicit something else, like a what do you call it?
Yeah. No,
Like
emotions
social media, you know?
emotions aren't a problem at all. I think you have the choice to view emotions as you view emotions. Emotions are natural. You can't avoid them. I choose to use them as fuel.
Yeah,
So that
appreciation.
so
And that leads to appreciation, right? You're like, oh, like nice leaf or like wonderful, well, like a wonderful hue of purple.
or if something pisses me off, I'll go train more tired bench press or something. So it's like not everything's super nice. Not really like cool purple, but it's like fuck. And I push it
Yeah.
back.
So like you said that the emotions fuel you, like specifically how in terms of like your work in your businesses.
And not so much my general emotion for working is excitement. So it's pretty easy to do stuff when you're excited.
Yeah.
So when I'm working, I'm often in a flow state. So there's obviously in business, there's stuff you have to do. So if you feel like you have to do something that creates resistance, which isn't good. So when you go back to your question about saying what's your day to day like? So my incentive structure is obviously want the tokenized software license to succeed. So I'll do whatever's and that's also my incentive. Like I clearly own some. So in my day to day, I'm thinking, okay, will this task increase the value of tokenized software licenses? If yes, I do it, and if it's by my own choice, I'm happy doing it. So, for example, like if for whatever reason, me driving back and forth for 5 hours from here to park here, just driving back and forth, were to somehow increase the tokenized software license, I would happily do that. I wouldn't complain. Whereas if I were just getting paid like an hourly wage to do that, I'd be like, oh, this is stupid. So I think the incentive structure helps with that.
Yeah. And one of the things that I've realized, like in this half an hour, 45 minutes talking with you, is that you view your regular day-to-day life as like different workflows or different structures, like you were doing like incentive structure or like a specific workflow to to wake up more excited, to wake up being more thankful, being more appreciative. And I feel like that's really important, right? Like because everything is based on choices, right? Like on a superficial level, we all have a choice whether to feel happy or sad, or to waste our or to use our time doing something or another, right? So it's like all that opportunity cost that we have to sort of internalize before we actually commit to an action, and and I truly feel like that's a wonderful way to really see things, right? Like through structures and through workflows, because
Yeah,
first of all, it does improve productivity, and second of all, it does improve your like outlook on life in
yeah.
general.
It's not so much the individual tasks. It's like get good systems in place that work for you, which is puts you in a general direction, but then have freedom within the system to like enact creativity. And that's what's worked for me. It may work for you. Who knows?
Yeah, yeah, because like at the basis, it's all like, okay, how can I be more creative? How can I be more productive? Especially like for an entrepreneur like yourself, right? It's like as long as we keep our needs met and we consciously know like if we're achieving our needs and not, like I feel like we can become more productive with it.
You know if you're doing your job.
Yeah,
Like you don't need anyone to tell you you did a bad job.
yeah,
Like for my specific example, if I so chose, if I wanted to block off 2 hours on my calendar tomorrow, saying, and I would put the caption as going for a walk. No one would question is like, well, this walk will make me more productive. I'll probably have some good ideas on the walk. I'll see a nice purple flower, and then we'll incorporate purple into the design, and then we'll get a million NFT sales.
yeah. But it's also like I feel like there's always two perspectives to it, right? Like, okay, let's say I were to block off my schedule for 2 hours just to go on a walk, experience nature. there's one perspective where, okay, I'll be more creative, I'll be able to think about more ideas, like how to get more sales, how to meet more clients. But there's also the other thing, like trying to distance yourself from the work in a way like you're like where your id and ego come into clash, I feel.
See, I view it all as the work,
You view it all as work.
but not like good work. So, for example, an hour-long sales call, hour-long walk, like one's not work and one's not break. They're all just kind of the same. In those two examples,
That's a wonderful way to see it.
yeah.
Because
So there's no clash because they are.
yeah,
I become the work. Yes.
that's it. That's
Yeah.
it. Like I feel like that involves like a perspective change on what you see as work, on what you see as productive, and how you see that really benefiting you in the long run.
Yeah. Exactly.
And so I wanted to do something fun. Like it's like a rapid fire questionnaire sort of thing. I'm gonna ask you a series of quick like a few questions, and then you're gonna answer it in as less time as possible. Just like
Okay. Speed round.
yeah, just
Go
be
for it.
okay. So number one is what inspired you to get into the world of e-commerce and NFTs?
Bitcoin.
E-commerce.
Bitcoin. So in terms of Bitcoin, we got on with crypto. Then that's when I met the original shopping team, and then that's what led me to develop something for e-commerce and Bitcoin and crypto.
All right. What's your favorite book and why?
Anti-Fragile have the most value. There's just lessons for days in there. The whole Inserto series is fantastic.
All right. And what's your go-to meal to cook?
Steak,
Steak.
medium rare. So I like to sous vide. It makes it super easy. So I put rosemary, thyme, salt, pepper, and then with a sous vide, I don't know if you know what it is, but what
Yeah.
it does, yeah, sous vides are fantastic. So you put it in an airtight bag, put the steak in the pot, sous vide it. So the sous vide heats the water to a certain temperature. You can leave do your thing for like an hour or two. Then you come back. All you have to do is like fry for a second on each side, and then your steak's good to go, restaurant quality.
That's wonderful. And what's your favorite chess opening or strategy?
Uh, Font E4. Sometimes I like to do something really random that just makes no sense to see how they react.
Valid, valid. And what's your favorite travel destination and why?
That's a good question. Any national park,
Any national park?
just national, like something foresty.
Okay. What's your favorite NFT project or favorite NFT like client that you've met through your ShopX?
Mag Park is first. They have a special place in my heart. My favorite NFT project is something one of my friends made up. It's called the Do Quablins. So it's a bunch of goblins with Do Kwon's face with Do Kwon quotes that was launched around the time. The There's no purpose to the project. It was just you mint 69 out of the wallet for free. There's no roadmap. There's no audit. So I send those out as gifts now. Like after a call, it's like, hey, send me your address. I'll send you an NFT, and then people get a good laugh out of it. I'll send you one too if you want a dope album.
Oh, that I'll take
Yeah,
that.
yeah, they're fun. Yeah.
Our last question. What's your favorite thing to do when you're not working?
Yeah, that's a good question. Nothing. I just sit and do nothing.
Just sit and do nothing. And I feel
Yeah,
like you can find like true peace within yourself through that.
exactly. Ideally in the sun.
Yep. And so that ends the rapid fire round. Um, to conclude this interview, like, do you have any last thoughts, like anything that you'd really like to share, any advice, anything really that you really want listeners to take away?
Yeah, just be your authentic self. Things will work on the end for you. And if you do choose to go down the crypto path, not financial advice, but self custody your stuff in cold storage. Learn how to self custody your stuff in cold storage.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. Short and sweet, to the point.
Yeah.
All right. And if that's it, I'd like to thank you again, Eric, for joining us today. It's been really insightful learning about NFTs and blockchain and the metaverse. You're actually my first guest who's talked about this in great detail. So
Nice.
that's wonderful. And I hope to bring in more of this futuristic tech onto the podcast. Um, and I guess that's it. Thank you again so much for for joining
Yeah.
me.
Thank you for having me. It was a fun time.
All right. And if that's it, have a wonderful evening, you all.